One of the most valuable lessons that I've learned so far in my journey as an entrepreneur is that sometimes the things that we do for fun, the things that we do to bring us pleasure, if we're not careful and if we don't manage it properly, those things can become the thing, the obstacle, the roadblock that's preventing us from experiencing and tasting success. Let me explain. Hey guys, I'm Christian Batuli. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If it happens to be the first time you're coming across the channel, welcome to the family. We're excited to have you here and thank you for taking the time out of your day to check us out. In this platform, we talk about anything that has to do with entrepreneurship. We also talk about self-growth, self-improvement, anything that has to do with not only helping you make more money, but also helping you become a better version of yourself. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing to the channel. If you're a return subscriber, this is more than once you're coming back to the channel. I appreciate your support so much. It means a lot. Not to waste any more time, let's jump into today's video. All right, beautiful people. So if you happen to be somebody who's been somewhat of a loyalist to my YouTube channel, my very small YouTube channel, meaning you've been there since the beginning, then it shouldn't come as a surprise, and you should already know that I am a big advocate of people living in their truth, of people, searching for their happiness, and of people doing things that generally make them feel like they're doing what they're supposed to do in life. I'm all for that. And the reason why is because life is not guaranteed. It doesn't matter how much money you got. It doesn't matter what kind of cars you drive. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. And there are a lot of people out there who have money, who have all the things in the world, but they didn't get to see today. So I'm always going to be that person to tell people, hey, go have fun. Like, you work hard, you play hard. Now, even though all those things sounds great, it sounds good, but we also have to be honest. And the honesty is a lot of people, a lot of grown folks just don't know how and when to put limitations when it comes to fun, when it comes to satisfying their needs, when it comes to, fulfilling their pleasure. Meaning, we all have, little things that we do as an adult, perhaps we shouldn't do. It's kind of like our guilty pleasure. Mine, I smoke Mary Jane. I also like to drink whiskey. Now, am I saying you shouldn't do any of those things? No, I think it's personal choice. I make my choice, you make yours. But what I'm saying is, even I know I have to put limitations and restrictions when it comes to me drinking, when it comes to me smoking. Because if I don't, it's really not going to help me. It's only going to take me further away from my dreams. Don't get me wrong, nothing, makes me happy than, sipping on good whiskey while I'm smoking Mary Jane and I got some Afrobeat, Afro house, or hip hop in the background playing and I'm just vibing. I love those moments. Don't get me wrong. But I also had to learn the hard ways that if you don't know how to put limitation on anything that you do, then you're going to find yourself becoming a victim of your own, pleasure, your own satisfaction, your own need. I'll give you guys an example. So I remember one time, I was talking to one of my buddy, right? Keep in mind, this was over a decade ago. I was young, single, no kids, no bills, at least not as I do now. Now I got bills, bro. It's getting expensive out here. But anyway, I remember I was hanging out with this guy a lot and he was really cool. I would definitely consider him a very close friend because we were hanging out every single day. And then all of a sudden, it went ghost. I didn't see him for literally a couple months. And as a friend, I trying to reach out to him, couldn't get to him. I even trying to reach out to mutual friends to kind of see how he's doing and stuff like that, but no one knew anything about him. So I just kind of let it be. And I was just checking up on him as a friend. I didn't know whether he was still alive, if he was okay. After a while, we ended up reconnecting again. So we decided to link up and, go to a bar and just, have fun and shoot some pool. And while we're shooting pool and talking, my buddy told me that he was homeless for 2 months and that he had been living out of his car. And the crazy thing about it is no one knew about it. He told me that he was embarrassed to ask people to go live with them because a lot of people will tell you one thing, but when it comes to that time, when they need to step up, they'll act differently. Pretty much after we talked and he told me everything, the message that I got from him was that, hey, bro, we are on our own here. You need to save money. You need to have emergency money because, me and him were literally in the same tax bracket, meaning we both broke. So if he was able to experience that, I could easily find myself in that situation. So basically, he just told me, he was like, bro, the reason why I ended up being homeless is because I just didn't have any backup money. And sometimes life will hit you with shit that you did not expect. So he just told me, hey, build up your bank. So in case something happened, you don't find yourself living out of your car. And that conversation had scared me so much to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to focus on saving as much as possible. So I remember me and him, we had the conversation toward the end of October, right? It was around winter time. We're just entering the winter season. And then I remember getting a job and I also remember getting another job. So I had two jobs and they were paying well. Keep in mind, I did not have a lot of bills. So I was able to save. So from winter all the way to spring the following year, I was able to save $4,000, man. Literally. I was so proud of myself, because just the fact that I was dedicated, I was motivated, I was patient enough to be able to save that money. I felt so great about myself. And along the way, I remember talking to my buddy's dad, and he was telling me he was trying to sell this motorcycle. And the reason why he wanted to sell this motorcycle is because um like something had come up, like he needed some liquid cash. There was something going on with the family. He didn't really want to tell me too much about it, but basically he had told me he didn't want to sell the bike, but he had to, and he needed cash, like ASAP. Keep in mind, this bike was brand new. Literally, he had it for maybe a year and a half. This bike was well taken care of, low mileage. You can tell whoever owned this bike is someone who's serious. So I ended up telling him, like, hey, I always wanted to have a bike. I would love if you don't mind selling it to me. And I think he had bought the bike maybe for like 15,000. So he wasn't trying to take too much loss. But since he needed the money, he kind of had to take a loss. So I told him, hey, I can give you half of that money. He was not okay with it. But since I was his son friend and I was a great friend to his son, he, for some reason, he had agreed. He called me a day after. He was like, you know what, Christian, I'll give you a shot. Yeah, so when can you have the 7,000? And I told him, hey, right now I got 4,000. If you can get maybe, 8 weeks, 2 more months, I will come up with the remaining 3,000 and I'll give you the money. Please, please, please. I told him that. And he was willing to give me a shot. So he was like, all right, I need the money now, but I'm going to give you 8 weeks to come up with the money. And I remember feeling so motivated. And I remember I was just so excited because that was my first opportunity to flip something. This was around the time where I just started to like come into this entrepreneurship, world. And I wanted to trying to flip something, and I saw having that motorcycle as the opportunity to make more money because it was a brand new motorcycle, barely any miles on it. And I knew if I had that bike, I could have sold it for at least, 10,000, 11,000. And I was going to make at least like $4,000 to $5,000 profit. So I was definitely excited, for that opportunity. So I went back to work, trying to hustle, come up with the remaining of the money. And then summer happens. Yes, summer happens. And if you live in a town where, everybody goes to the lake, there's pretty girls, beautiful sun, like, you know what time it is. And I was young, no family, no bills. Guess what? I started going out with my friends. My friends will come over every day. We'll have barbecue. I don't even think I cooked at all. We're literally eating out every single day, drinking every single day, like going to concert, all that. And then before you know it, the $4,000 that I had, poof, I was shocked. I didn't even know like you can blow through money that quick. And that was the first time that I learned it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you're not smart with that money, you will blow through it. So it makes sense how you can become a millionaire and go from that to being broke. I was just shocked. I was like, wow. It didn't feel like I was having that much fun, but I was, I guess. All that money was gone. And I felt bad because I had told my friend's dad I was going to come up with the money, right? And he needed the money ASAP, but he gave me a shot because I was his son, his friend. And I felt like I had let him down, and wish I did, because I remember when I talked to him when, the due date had arrived for me to give him that 7,000. I told him, hey, dude, I don't have any money. Something happened. I made up a bunch of excuses. But I did feel bad about wasting my buddy's dad's time, and most importantly, I felt like an idiot for missing that great opportunity because I couldn't put limitations to my fun. I couldn't say no to my friends. I couldn't, say no to go to the bars and drink and doing all that kind of stuff, and I missed that great opportunity. Till this day, it hurts. I'm not gonna lie, but life, you gotta learn to live it with regrets. It is what it is. So that's why I'm just trying to tell people, like, especially if you are an entrepreneur, you have to be smart. You have to move, lightly. And my story is nothing. 4,000, 14,000. That is nothing. I'm not even rich like that. There are a lot of people out there who had lost millions. Lost businesses, their house, their cars, all that, all because they couldn't put restriction when it comes to satisfying their pleasure. For example, I think gambling is cool. Once in a while, a healthy amount of gambling is okay. I'm not telling people out there to gamble. You know what I mean? But once in a while, I like to gamble, go out with my friends and see if I can win money. But if it becomes an everyday thing, then that becomes a problem. If it becomes a thing where you're losing money, you're getting yourself into debt, then that gambling probably not the thing for you, right? If you like to smoke, which I do, Mary Jane, or whatever you smoke, or hopefully it's not anything bad, okay? Just to make that clear. If you like to do that, but if you find yourself depending on it, then that's not good. It's no longer serving you well. You know what I mean? If you like sex, if you like to hook up, everybody likes sex, right? If you like to do that, but then again, be responsible, know how to wrap that shit up, be responsible, and don't get yourself in some situation and deal with crazy chicks out here. So you have to know where to put limitations. It's very important. I'm not saying you should be a nun, right? I'm not saying you should become boring. I'm not saying you should be serious all the time. But what I'm saying is, if you're going to do things that brings you, guilty pleasure, things that adults do to make us feel relaxed, maybe escape from reality, maybe laugh or being tipsy or drunk or high, whatever you want to call it or whatever you like to do. If you don't know how to put restriction on it, you're going to find yourself in a bad position. And I'm just being honest with you. And the reason why I stress this so much is because, I feel like that's what breathes addiction. And just to make it clear, I'm not coming to you guys as someone who is an expert in addiction or someone who's a professional in that field. But based on my experience, I feel like if you don't know how to draw the line, you don't know how to say no, you don't know where the guardrails is, then you will find yourself in a position where you never thought you'll be. And that's how addiction comes about, man. I'm serious. Anything that involves playing with dopamine, which we do all the time, things that adults like to do, activities that most adults like to do, guess what? It plays with dopamine. When you smoke, guess what? The dopamine is being released. You know, when you drink, same thing. When you're hooking up, same thing. You know, so if you're not careful, you might become an addict. You know, so I think this will be like a good example of how I think of, you know, how dopamine works in our brain. So in our brain, right, we have, let's just say we have a balance in our brain, right? A balance that deals with dopamine. So we have a balance and then we have a fulcrum in the center. Right now, the balance is even, right, at the ground level. So let's just say one side of the balance, we're going to call it pleasure. The other side of the balance, we're going to call it pain. All right. And once again, pain can be represented with anything, just depends on how you're using this process. So for the sake of this video, we're going to use pain to represent sober. All right. So right now, the balance is even, right? You are at a homeostasis level, meaning everything is working properly. All right. So let's just say you drink. So when you drink, the balance, right, tip on the side of pleasure, right? Because you're drinking and you're feeling good about yourself, you know, dopamine is being released, right? So the fast and the more it tips on either side, the more we get to experience the experience. If you're smoking, you get to feel really high. If you're drinking, you get to feel really drunk or really tipsy, you know, whatever it might be, right? So what happens is, so when you drink, the balance is tip, pleasure, pain. And if you know anything about the human body, is that anytime anything is out of alignment, the body will work its best to bring it back to a homeostasis level, right? That's why when you get sick, your immune system is working so hard to fight it so you can feel better, so you can feel, you know, at a good level. Same thing with our brain, same thing with the balance, right? So when you drink, it tips on the pleasure side, and the body is working hard to make you sober so you can come back at a balanced level. So the more you drink, right, the more you're doing this, the more you're doing this. And after a while, what you're going to develop is you're going to start craving. Let's just say alcohol. You like to drink alcohol, right? You're going to start to crave it because you drink so much that your balance is no longer at a level where it could be balanced, right? So what's going to happen is you're going to start to crave it more. And then the more you crave it, the more the tolerance you're going to have. So remember when you had never smoked marijuana before and then you smoke it for the first time and then you were just super high? But after you smoke it a little while, it's like you need at least like 3 joints just to feel high because your tolerance has built up due to you craving it more. Same thing with alcohol. You used to drink maybe 2 drinks and get you a little drunk. Now you need 4 just to feel the exact same amount. So basically what's happening is after a while, every time, you know, you drink, every time you smoke, since you had built up such a high tolerance, what's going to happen is you drink, you smoke, you feel pleasure, and then you're back to normal. Because at that point, your high, your drunkenness is going to keep getting shorter, and your ability to become sober will be faster. You know what I mean? So you're going to get to a point where every time you drink, you get a little drunk and then you're back to being sober. And when you get sober, your body's so used to you smoking, so drinking, it makes it hard for you to be at a stable level. Because I'm sober, but my body needs to drink. My body needs to smoke. Right? That's how people become addicted to things. And you know you are addicted to something by how hard you work to obtain whatever that you're looking for. If you drink, if you smoke, but you're working hard just to obtain your drug of choice, that's how you know you are becoming an addict. So that's why you got to pay attention to those kind of things. Too much of anything is not a good thing for anybody. Just go out and have fun, but don't do too much of it. Know when to say no. Know when to cancel on people. You know what I mean? Know when to be like, you know what? I can't. You have to. And the one thing I want you guys to know, it also comes in the form of people, right? Don't just look at it as like, oh, I gotta worry about addiction with drugs and alcohol, and no, right? Sometimes we have the wrong people around. We're hanging out too much with the wrong people. We're giving access, to the wrong people. And if we're not smart, guess what? It's gonna come back and bite us in the ass, later on. So just move carefully, be smart, know where you draw the line, because if you don't, people will push it and people will step over it. So it's very, very important. So entrepreneurs, I know you're trying to make something happen. I know you're out there grinding every single day. All right. And I definitely encourage you, if you want to have fun, go and have fun. If it's earned and deserved, yeah, do that. But just be careful, my brother. Be careful. Because our own pleasure can also bring us pain. If you don't drink responsibly, guess what? DUI is going to come. If you're hooking up out here irresponsibly, you're not being, you're not taking care of yourself, then you're heading toward a dead end. So just be smart. All right, guys. So in conclusion, I want you guys to have fun, okay? I want you to live your best life, to live in your truth. But I also want you to understand where to draw the line, where to draw the limitation, where to restrict yourself when it comes to the things that brings you pleasure, to the things that you consider fun, to the things that makes you feel alive, to the things that perhaps makes you feel like you're escaping reality at times. Just be careful with that. Too much of anything is not a good thing. And if you continue to play with things that deals with dopamine and you're not careful, you're going to find yourself in a lot more trouble than you anticipated. And especially if you are an entrepreneur, you need all the capitals that you can get. You can't afford to get hooked on something or have something have a hold on you to the point where you're not really moving as an entrepreneur. All right. And this is not just a message to just entrepreneurs. This is a message that you can also apply in real life. You know what I mean? So learn to put limitations on the things that brings you fun, right? I'm not saying that you shouldn't have fun. No, you go have fun, but be responsible. Understand that you got a lot more to lose. You have a bigger purpose. So that's the message for me today. You guys let me know what you think. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you guys next time.